I'm Nurse Huckleberry, and this is the Bad Reads Book Club.
Bad books, bad books. I've got so many bad books to read.
This is the Bad Reads Book Club, where I read bad books so you don't have to. This month, I read Etiquette and Espionage. So, Etiquette and Espionage. This is the Finishing School series by Gail Carriger, and it follows the adventures of 14-year-old Sophronia Temenic. So it's set in 1851 England, and in this universe, there are werewolves and vampires and mechanicals, which are maid and butler robots. That cruise around on tracks, and it is like almost directly pulled from that one Doctor Who episode with like the clock people with the clock faces that tick. So there's mechanicals, which is what the robots are called, and there's mech animals, and mech animals are robot animals. So the book begins with Sophronia's mother sending her to Mademoiselle Geraldine's finishing school for young ladies of quality. They have reached out and said like, yes, she would be an excellent candidate for our school because she, frankly, horrible at her etiquette, and she acts like a boy, and she needs to be finished, respectable young lady. And so she goes to this finishing school. The lady shows up and she's like, yes, I would like your daughter to attend. And she's like, yes, I would like my daughter to attend. And then she goes, Sophronia, by the way, you're now attending a finishing school. Go pack your bags. Day of, she finds out and has to go pack bags and is sent out to a carriage. And in the carriage, she meets Diminity, her soon-to-be best friend, Pillover, her brother, who's going to the Bunsons and LaCroix Boys Polytechnic School for evil geniuses.
Evil geniuses?
Yes, for evil geniuses. A polytechnic for evil geniuses. And then she also meets Monique, who was dressed as the headmistress, but is actually just a student at the school who was sent to retrieve her and to confuse the mom as a final task. Anyways, so she is collecting Diminity and Sophronia, and they are riding in a carriage, and when all of a sudden, flywaymen in this world that's set in 1850, everybody uses like hot air balloons and blimps and dirigibles to get around. Some dudes in a little blimp show up, and they're like, give us a prototype. And they're all like, what? And they're ripping them out, and they have to fight in the streets. And of course, Sophronia is like really intellectual, right? She's really smart. She's got all these street smarts helping her out. She hangs out with the stable boys, and she, climbs trees and is an adventurer. So what does she do? She figures out a way to beat all the 4 grown men as a 14-year-old girl. She beats up all these men. Doesn't really beat them up, but they manage to escape, and they've lost all their luggage. They go and they make it to the school, and when they get to the school, they're like, what happened to you guys? And Monique goes, yeah, there was flywaymen that attacked us, but luckily I stepped in and I saved the day, and I made sure that everyone was safe. And they're like, you didn't, actually. You got knocked out and were cowering in the street. But okay, sure, you saved the day. But on the carriage ride over, Sophronia finds out that it is not just a finishing school. No, this is a school of espionage, and that everybody who goes there is typically rich and devilish, right? So it's an evil genius school, and they're gonna be taught how to be assassins. She learns that the school is a giant airship, a huge giant airship. So they're like, okay, cool. And now the thing is, the school doesn't actually land at any point. So eventually they make their way over there. And how do you get onto the giant airship? Well, there was a professor who shows up who's not just a professor, he's also a werewolf. And so he's like, hold on tight, little girls. And so they end up having to grip onto him, like ride him like a horse as he runs and leaps onto the airship, and then they get off and they go inside. But that's like the first experience with the werewolf, is he could just change. They get in and then they're all, you know, talking to the teachers and stuff. And every single teacher in this damn book is a caricature. None of them have any sort of depth whatsoever. Every adult is a caricature in this book. Like, it is just a kid's book through and through. Finds out that the headmistress doesn't actually know what the school is about, and part of their lessons is being around the headmistress, and she teaches like dance lessons and stuff. And all the students know that the headmistress just thinks it's an actual finishing school. Part of their training is to like continuously con the headmistress, and like they'll be like practicing passing secret messages while doing dancing, and you know, so she can't see, practicing lying and stuff at the headmistress. Because Monique failed to deliver the prototype, she ends up being demoted, and because like they know that she's lying about stuff, because she's definitely not telling the truth, they put her with the first years. They're like, you are about to graduate, but instead we're gonna put you with the first years. And so of course, she ends up having to bunk with Sophronia and Divinity, of course. So while being settled into things, they go off of London time, which means that they don't wake up until noon, and then they breakfast kind of leisurely, and then dinner is at like 10 p.m. So they've arrived in time for dinner, and then after dinner there's still more classes. So they're doing all these classes. The first day is 100 pages of a 300-page book. So I was like, okay, wow, okay, we're still on day one. Eventually, she has classes with various teachers, including one that is a vampire. Something happens, and they have to run up to the roof to see what's going on. And the flywaymen that had attacked them while they were in the carriage are now attacking the ship. They're attacking the school. And they literally send, you know, they're like shooting cannons at him and sending something over, and there's a message that says like, you have 2 weeks to return the prototype. We'll be back. And that was sent via Mechanimal, which Sophronia, of course, picks up. She's like, hello. It's in the shape of a little wiener dog, and she's like, hello, wiener dog. Whoop. You're mine now. And then she just kind of like, I don't know, it's supposed to be this big. I don't know how she just secretly was like, because they're not supposed to have those. So she makes her way back down to her room with the mechanical, and then decides, I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna name it Bumbersnoot.
Bumbersnoot?
Bumbersnoot. All the names in this book are so stupid. Some of my favorites, Mrs. Barnacle Goose, Diminity Ann Plumley Tenningmott, Lord Dingleproops. Anyway, so she ends up taking this mech-animal, and they're like, huh, this is fun. What does it eat? I mean, it's like a little steam engine thing, like, what's to do? Turns out you have to feed it coal. So then, of course, Sophronia has to figure out where to get coal. So the next day, she goes and climbs around the outside of the blimp and makes her way down to the boiler room where the sooties are. And this is where stuff like...
Sooties?
Sooties. It's guys that shovel coal into the boilers, right? When I'm like, why do we have actual humans doing this particularly labor-intensive thing when you have all throughout the school there are robots? I'm like, I feel like a robot could do this. You don't need a man to do it. Either way, she goes down there and all these soot-covered guys, and she ends up running into this one guy, and his name is Soap. Or I don't remember what his real name is, but his nickname is Soap. And they jokingly call him that because he could use soap more than anyone else. And he's tall and thin and a couple years older and very funny. They give her some coal, and she manages to like climb her way back up, and then regularly goes and visits the sooties. There is a definitive attempt at making this a steampunk Harry Potter, and it just misses the mark really hard. Like, it's not like Harry Potter at all, but you can tell that they're like, no, this is like going down to the kitchens and getting food from the kitchens. Like, they had like Harry Potter and then they tried to line stuff up with it, but then had no idea how the rest of it worked. They're like, you know what? Harry Potter's got werewolves. Harry Potter's got vampires. Harry Potter's got secret room that you go down to and ask the poor people for things. Yeah, and you treat them better than anybody else would. Mm-hmm. Then it's also very Lemony Snicket-y in, like, if you ever read the Lemony Snicket books, like the kids in the books, you know, one of them's really book read, one of them's good at inventions, the baby is good at biting. That kind of motley crew of kids that figure out their way through anything. It is determined that Soph was actually recruited to the school. She wasn't sent to the school by her mother. The school recruited her, right? Because someone had told them, hey, she's got what you're looking for. She's got some excellent spy skills. Anyway, so Soph is super hyper focused on figuring out what the prototype that Monique had was, because she's like, the prototype, it's so important. We gotta figure it out. Gotta figure out the prototype. Constantly at war with each other. So as I said, the first 100 pages was the first day, and then it skips 3 weeks. And you're like, okay, they've been in classes for a while. Another adventure along the same lines of everything else, where the same thing happens. Okay, great. You know more about the prototype. No answers to anything. A month passes. And then there's another little thing that happens. And then 4 months pass. And then another little thing happens. And then it's like 2 more months. And so there's these huge gaps of time where, I don't know, nothing of note happens. They just attend classes. It doesn't make any sense. They are trying to figure out what the prototype is. They're sneaking into different rooms to try and see if they can figure out what the prototype is. They end up going to the boys' school to try and figure out this whole prototype thing. There's also another like inventor kid that they make friends with along the way, who's a girl that dresses as a boy. There's a play, and Fronia got in trouble because somebody saw her climbing down to the boiler room to get coal, and so she was told she's not allowed to go to the play. And instead, she's stuck on the ship, but of course, she, well, along with the help of the Sooties, figures out how to get off the ship and goes to the Bunsen's boys' school, goes sneak through, and of course she can't be seen because she is a girl, and because everybody's gonna be distracted at the play. They go to Bunsen's. So they go through and they're climbing their way up to the top of Bunsen's because they're like, I know where it'd be on the roof. Prototype is actually some communication device to send messages through the ether. Yeah, through the air, to send messages through the ether from one point to another, because it's 1851, and even though there are werewolves and there are vampires and there are mechanicals, there's no Wi-Fi or internet yet. So, you know, they have to try and figure out telegrams and stuff, right? Anyways, and they figure out what it's for, but they don't actually find the prototype. They have to make their way back to the ship. So they go back to the ship. But what do they see when they're there? In the distance, they're like, oh, what is that? It's the werewolf teacher. And they're like, wait, he's not supposed to be here. It's a full moon. Oh my God. So then the werewolf teacher is like, I'm gonna eat you. And he's running over, and they gotta they gotta run. They're running and they're trying to make it to the ship, and they're freaking kicking him because he's climbing up, and she's kicking him down like, get over me. So then they make it back on the ship, right? Everybody's fine. They're whatever. They make it back on the ship. And no one's the wiser, right? No one knows they were gone. But now they have an idea of what the prototype is for, but they still don't know what it is. And then eventually they figure out Monique must have hidden it at Sophronia's house, at her parents' house, when she was there, because she was like, I'd like to take a walk around the grounds while Sophronia packs her belongings. And so she wandered around the garden and probably hid it there. And they're like, oh my God, duh, how did we not figure that out before? Because the Flyawaymen didn't find it in the carriage. Oh my God, this makes so much sense. So then, Sophronia's mom is gonna have a ball for her older sister, and so they're like, okay, let's get everybody invited to the debut ball for my older sister, duh, and then we can all track around Monique, because no, Monique went and got herself invited to the debut ball for my older sister, and then we'll catch her in the act. Except the ball doesn't happen until the end of the school year. So they just make it through the remaining like 3 or 4 months of the school year. It just jumps. Anyway, so then they cut to the ball, right? They're at the ball, and you know, they're watching freaking Monique like a hawk. She's talking with this evil pickle man. Which apparently the pickle men are like an organization of very evil people that wear top hats with green ribbons on them. I don't know, the pickle man. So she's talking with this pickle man, and the pickle man is like, hand over the prototype. No, I want more money. And she's got the prototype in her bag. And meanwhile, Sophronia is in the bushes watching this whole thing go down. And then Divinity comes up. She's like, quick, Divinity, cause a ruckus and bring it all outside. Also, bring me one of those cheese pies. So Divinity does that. She brings her a cheese pie. And then she's talking to the pickle man and is like, hey, I want more money. And the pickle man's like, no, you're not gonna get more money. Also, there's an extra fee now for collection or something. Anyway, so the pickle man is like making problems. He's causing problems. He's like trying to fight. He brings out a huge mechanical horse-sized English bulldog, and for whatever reason, it's got like a huge boiler in its mouth, and it's like. Sophronia's like, of course I'm gonna figure out a way to get us out of here. Take that flask of gin, dump it on the mechanical, and then I'm gonna like go over there and intervene. And so it gets dumped on the mechanical, and then it just dumped on it, like boop, boop, boop. She falls into one guy, and then she hits Monique, and she just rips the whole front of her bodice off. And Monique's like, ah! And she drops her bag that has the prototype in it, because she had found it after she hid it in the bird bath all along. So she drops her bag with the prototype, and Sophronia, thinking quick on her feet, throws herself on the ground and starts rolling around wildly and gets underneath Monique's huge dress, because it's the 1850s, she's got a huge dress, so she gets underneath her dress, gets the reticule, takes out the prototype, swaps it for the cheese pie, and then takes the prototype and puts it in her bag, and then quickly gets up and like goes back inside. Except now, no one knows that she has swapped the prototype for a cheese pie, and the mechanical starts to chase after her, but of course it's this big metal thing with a boiler inside, now doused in gin, and so it catches on fire, but it's chasing after Monique like, bork, bork, I'm on fire and I'm gonna bite you. And Monique's like, oh God. So the giant dog thing rips off her entire dress, and so she's just in her underwear, her underclothings, which is fully covered because this is 1850. And she's like, oh my God, I gotta get away. And she's got singed petticoats. And she's like, leave me alone. Yeah, and then everybody leaves, and the party is like kind of ruined, but not really ruined. But Sophronia manages to secret away the prototype and get it to the right people, and she's like, see you next year. It turns out Mrs. Barnacle Goose was the informant all along. But yeah, so I ended up looking into the author because this book sucked. It was really terrible. I really had a hard time reading it. I hated it the whole time. It was set in England, which you would not have guessed. I mean, it says like, oh, you know, London, says town names that are in England, maybe. Except there is zero British slang used at all. There's no British terms for anything. It's mostly modern English with just random difficult words thrown in. It's like they were trying to make it at a higher grade level, so they just threw in the hard words that they knew people would have to look up in a dictionary. And it comes across as like really pompous. And as an adult, it comes across as, again, like Lemony Snicket did it, but he did it really well. And it feels like they're trying to do that, but it's not going well. Also, all the inventions have these like 4 or 5 word names. And it just feels dumb. It feels dumb. Yeah, like that. Yeah, it felt really forced. When I went back and I researched the author, it turns out that they maybe had a British father, an expatriate British father, but they were born and raised in California, and you could tell they were a theater kid. You could tell. It's very obvious. Yeah, there's also, as I said, the strange approach to the race and class issues, but also to puberty, because they're in a spy school. So part of the spy school is learning things like all the finishing school stuff, like learning how to curtsy properly and learning this, that, and the other. But then it's also like, you should always have a spare handkerchief shoved down your cleavage. Everybody reach into your cleavage and pull out your handkerchief. You might have a problem because we're all 14 here, so you might have a problem if you're 14, you don't have very big boobs yet. But like maybe, there's a lot of talk about stuffing bras. There's a lot of talk about like your bodies are changing. And how you should be how you need to learn to use your body to seduce men. There's a lot of eyelash fluttering, like the whole classes spent on eyelash fluttering and how to faint and all those things, and how to use them in your espionage techniques. And that felt really weird. Personally, it felt like a little bit much for 14-year-olds to be told that they need to have a handkerchief in their décolletage so that they can, woo older men. I didn't like that. Yeah, overall, 1 out of 5 stars. I really hated this book. I really didn't like it. I liked the previous book club book, Digger, way more. That one was actually funny. It was entertaining to read. It was pretty crass, but at least it was good. This was, it droned on, and the writer clearly just, like, I was telling Duder earlier, the writer, if they showed up in chat, they would have been one of those people that's like, bites fingernails in anticipation in like asterisks. It's not sexy, Duder. It's not. Yeah, they'd be like, hello, my lady. You're looking particularly fantastic this evening. Bites fingernails and with angst. Like, that is what it felt like I was reading. Like, I don't know. They tried to combine too many things. The steampunk, the Harry Potter, the Lemony Snicket, and tried to shove it all together with Bumber Snoot and Mrs. Barnacle Goose and all these stupid names like Dingle Prooper. And it felt bad. It felt bad. I didn't like it. But thank you all for joining me on yet another Bad Reads Book Club. And if you ever want to read one of the books I've read, which you probably don't, let me know, and I can hook you up with a book. All right, thanks so much, everybody.
Bad books, I've got so many bad books to read.